I made a previous video on not playing politics with the poor suffering. However, there's actually a second way that Trump can sidestep the fiasco of playing politics with the poor suffering, other than showing that they wish to go to government and govern and vote on bills and budgets and so on. And that is, if they've planned this out properly, and they actually thought it through, then one of the genius moves that could exist, I don't know if this is the case or not, I really hope it is in a sense, is that Republicans in the state governments have been planning state welfare and disability payments, not federal. And the Democrats will be caught off guard, and then they'll have to do their own state stuff and so on. And this is quite brilliant, possibly, because what it means is the states will be responsible for their people's well-being, not the federal government. So it simultaneously does a few things, all at the same time, if this is what's going on. One, the Democrats will be caught off guard and look stupid because the Republicans have been planning their own state-based, state-level welfare and disability payments for the poor and suffering and so on. And the Democrats are flat-footed and caught off guard and don't make any reservations and so on. Two, for the long term, the levels of people on the welfare system are more on the Democrat side of things than the Republican side of things, so the Republican states will do better financially and so on, while the Democrats sink into debt and so on, and it'll be their fault for bad economic policy. Thirdly, it gives something back to states power-wise for governance. So it satisfies subsidiarity. Fourthly, by keeping it state level, you shrink the number of people that you have to audit or deal with and so on to minimize fraud better. And lastly, you make a comparison between the payouts for welfare and disability and the well-being of those who are poor. You differentiate it based on states being Republican or Democrat, and so on. So that means there's a real competition between the various states and so on. Oh, and actually, sixthly, I guess, and lastly, you're shrinking the purview of the federal budget, so there's less expenditure from the federal government, and they can tax less too. So the states will handle the taxation and distribution of wealth and so on to the poor and needy and so on. And it'll be more honest appraisals. And the federal government will cease to be a piggy bank and pay pig for every Tom, Dick, and Jane equally. And which state you're in and its economic health will determine the amount of money you get, buying power-wise, based on their level of generosity as well, based on the economic policies that render the state healthy financially or unhealthy financially. And this will obviously favor the Republicans over the Democrats for the most part. So, by shunting off the federal government to the state level, you're tightening up on corruption and fraud. You're showing the Democrats and Republicans difference in governmental capabilities. If you do it first, then the Republicans will look extra good because they pre-planned it, and the Democrats will look extra bad because they didn't make any preparations for this transfer of welfare responsibility from the federal to the state level, and so on. And that gives a closer to home accounting. And I guess seventh of all, people probably won't mind paying for welfare for people in their own state nearly as much as welfare for across the country. So you might see a certain degree of extra payment to the poor in the well-off states, and so on. And by transferring it to state level, you'll sink Democrat, socialist states into bankruptcy and poverty, making them look even worse, and so on, by keeping your hands clean, because the Republicans are doing just fine. So there's like 6 or 7 different points that make this potentially genius if Trump is doing it, basically. And it's one of those things that even if the Democrats saw it coming, they wouldn't be able to win in the end because of their own financial mismanagement. So it's like a surprise attack, but also a forcing strategy. And the surprise is just a bonus round of hits on the Democrats' credibility if the Republicans have pre-planned and prepared for transferring welfare responsibility from federal to state level. And the sheer burden on the state will sink the Democrat-run shitholes, and the Republicans will stay afloat in their various states. And it'll force accountability eventually on the Democrats, while also shrinking the federal budget and its tax burdens and so on. And like I said, and importantly, again, I'll mention it just one more time, is by keeping the group smaller and more local, you have greater accountability against fraud and corruption, and the people who are paying for it will mind less if they're paying for the people around them than if they're paying for someone on the other side of the continent. So yeah. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.